Joining us via Skype is the CEO Diaspora PR, Jermaine Sanwoolu. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, Ernest Bai Koroma, the president of Sierra Leone, has declared 7 days of mourning and, of course, is asked for urgent support. But were these deaths really avoidable in the first place?
Well, these deaths were a bit avoidable. It was like a tragedy waiting to happen. Flooding in the West African region is quite common, but this is the worst one in over 2 decades. And why this could have been avoided is that the hilltop regions area is actually area that is actually close to the sea level, and people have lived there for a number of years, but illegally. They built up structures that are along the Channel Way and are not actually meant to be there. It is an issue of deforestation whereby people have cleared a lot of trees to actually build buildings there, but that has affected the topography and the area because the trees are meant to actually hold the soil together. What we see in that area is that shanty buildings are being built, things made of tin and also made of wood, which can easily be swept away by the flood. So this is a natural disaster, but a human element, which could have avoided a lot of this casualty, should have actually been done so that that area could have been planned better, and humans could actually have stopped this from happening to them.
International agencies are really concerned about water level contaminations from this flooding generally. And is it likely we're seeing from the contamination, are we seeing the likelihood of an epidemic, maybe diarrhea or tuberculosis or even something more than that?
Well, I'm sure there are going to be such situations that will take place in that area in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone, first of all, especially in Freetown, is a very, very densely populated area of 1 million people, overcrowded. Now, one of the major drainage systems there, which is called the Samba gutter, is actually overflooded, filled with a lot of silt from the mudslide from the Sugar Loaf Mountain, which actually fell during the torrential rains and flash flooding. So we see a lot of contamination of the water system in that area. You're right, and that is because the waste in the Samba gutter is actually flowing into people's houses, flowing into the streets, and you can imagine people have to drink, they have to eat, and over 3,000 people are actually rendered homeless. So you can be sure that there's going to be some form of infection, diarrhea, things like that would happen. But hopefully there will be some support from the Red Cross and the government and international organizations to ensure that this is actually averted and actually the rate of infection is actually limited.
Of course, this is a country that has gone through a lot of pain. First was the war and then Ebola, and now you have this mudslide tragedy. Of course, the UN has been talking about huge humanitarian efforts that will be required to deal with the impact of the flooding. What do you think can be done immediately so that Sierra Leone can actually go past this tragedy?
Well, yes, it is a tragedy. It's not like the Ebola situation that infected over 14,000 people and actually led to the death of close to 4,000 people, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. The Sierra Leonean government has to actually get its acts together, has to ensure that boots are on ground. I know that they are putting police and they are putting a lot of military personnel on ground, but they have to do more to ensure that, first of all, places like the mortuary that is actually overcrowded right now. Close to 400 people are in the mortuary and they need to do a burial or clear them as soon as possible. There are over 600 people still missing according to the Red Cross. So a lot has to be done when it also comes to taking care of the volunteers, which are regular human beings who have volunteered their time to actually support, but they're not being fed well. They've had 2 days of no food. It is actually dire circumstance. There has to be a lot of relief for over the 3,000 people displaced. Where are they going to live? What are they going to do? There has to be quick action. There has to be massive support from the international community to help Sierra Leone, which has gone through a very, very hard time in this past decade.
All right, Jermaine, let's put you on hold a little bit and bring in Foladele to give us a perspective on social media, how people are reacting to this. Fola, good morning.
Hi, Fola.
Nice to see you.
Good morning, guys. Good to see you both. Okay, so let's find out what Nigerians are saying, and of course, people around the world. Fast Bad Guy says, say a prayer for Sierra Leone. Oluwasi Babanla replied to that and said, let's mind our business, hence pray for our universities against ASU strike.
Really?
Really? Nikki Haley says, our hearts are broken by the images from the Sierra Leone mudslide. We send our prayers to those who died and still missing loved ones. Sharon Deitch says, Israel sends prayers too. Oh, and actual aid too. Food assistance for thousands already in place. Lane Magbowi says, prayers for Sierra Leone. May God heal this grieving nation. Environmental degradation is dangerous. Climate change is not a fallacy. Zamor says, and someone said, let's pray for America. And Zamor said, we're praying for Sierra Leone. I think this is, before I leave, I think this is a question that the guests might want to take, that you might, okay, well, okay,
sure.
So let me throw this to you. So people are here talking about who should be praying for who right now, whether you should be praying for Nigeria or America or Sierra Leone. And this is something that comes up when tragedy hits different countries in the world. Should it be about whether you're praying for your own nation or another nation? Is it hypocrisy if someone from Nigeria is saying pray for Sierra Leone because things are happening in Nigeria and maybe you didn't necessarily send out a tweet saying pray for Nigeria? Should it be that you're being called a hypocrite? Is that something that should be talked about?
Well, it's quite interesting. We should know that Sierra Leone is our sister nation in West Africa here, and many of the problems that they face, we actually face too. Just a few weeks ago, we had the Lagos flooding that we're seeing, alligators and reptiles coming into people's homes. You see that Sierra Leone is actually in a similar circumstance when it comes to being a coastal city, and also has situations such as a lot of flooding, a lot of deforestation and overpopulation. So we have to come together as a collective, as Africans, to support one another, because what affects one affects the other. And also in Sierra Leone, there are a lot of Nigerians there. We don't know the Nigerian death count there, because we know that Nigerians travel to Sierra Leone and they share the same kind of Creole or Pidgin English. And you know also the jollof rice that has been contested, whose own is better. So we share similar culture.
But of course, jollof rice is better.
There's no dispute about the jollof rice.
Not today. We'll talk about it some other time.
Thank you very much. We'll certainly talk about the jollof rice something much more sometime. Now, Jermaine, Israel is one of the first countries to respond, saying that they will support Sierra Leone with clean drinking water, medicine, and other humanitarian equipment and facility. Now, how much of response should even other African countries like Nigeria, that is the big sister or big brother, if I have to put it that way, especially in ECOWAS, how much of response should the immediate countries put in?
Well, it's great that Israel has actually shown support. I think it's actually the first nation now. But you're very right. What is the African Union doing? What is Nigeria doing to actually show support or actually send relief or even military personnel to actually go and support them in that area when it comes to clearing the land and also rebuilding the community and supporting life? There has to be a lot done by the African Union, and especially our West African sisters such as Ghana, Togo, and Nigeria. We need to send emissaries, we need to send people there, charity workers, NGOs could actually rise up and say, you know what, they want to reach out to Sierra Leoneans and actually ensure that their suffering is limited.
Yeah, and of course, the realities of climate change still seem to be a far, a distant thing for us in Africa. Is it time that we really started taking climate change really seriously?
Yes, you're very correct. We need to take climate change very, very seriously, with the rising sea levels and the melting of the caps and all that in the North Pole. There's a lot of water coming down, a lot of flash flooding, torrential rains that are actually affecting West African countries. But most especially, we need to plan in advance, because some of these things that I said earlier could be averted. We need to look at the topography of the areas that we decide to live. We know that the Lagos State government is doing a lot to try and clear some areas that are prone to flooding. This is a good step. We need to avoid deforestation so that the soil can be held together. These are things that we can take to ensure that this kind of suffering and this kind of effect of global warming is not really affecting human beings. And also, we need to ensure that there is proper urban and regional planning, whereby there is channeling, there is dredging, there is everything done to ensure that these cities are planned to avoid human beings living where they're not meant to live, and ensure that there is no flooding and there is no loss of life as a consequence of that.
All right, Jermaine Sanwoolu, CEO at Diaspora PR. Thank you very much for talking to TVC Breakfast.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah.